spanning the globe to bring you the constant variety of sport, the thrill of victory, and the agony of defeat. The human drama of athletic competition. This is ABC's Wide World of Sports.
Hello, this is Doug Wilkerson again with Old School Boxing Talk. It's been a while since we've been on here. Wow. A lot has transpired since we've been on here. Last time we were on, we watched Terrence Crawford become the undisputed junior welterweight champion. And a couple days after that, Terrence Crawford relinquished the IBF title. So we went from undisputed to a belt out there, but the word is Crawford's moving out of 140 anyways. And of course, we had the retirement of Andre S.O.G. Ward. Wow, a great fighter that never got his due. In my opinion, I think Andre Ward will probably get his due now that he's gone. More so than he did when he was active. Because in my opinion, the biggest shame was Andre Ward was never fully given his due and recognized as pound for pound the best fighter in the world. Because the boxing media and some other people didn't want to give Ward his due, which I felt was a shame. Then we turned around and we almost had a great heavyweight title fight between Deontay Wilder and Luis King Kong Ortiz. But apparently Luis Ortiz was taking blood pressure medicine. Didn't reveal that to VADA. Thus, the BP meds he takes, VADA said, could be used as a masking agent. So in the end of the day, the real winner here is Bermane Stiverne, who took step-aside money to allow the Ortiz fight. Now he's going to make, not only does he get his step-aside money, but now he gets another paycheck because he now gets a title shot and another paycheck. So kudos to Bermane Stiverne, who made out pretty well in this. Got 2 checks. Now, as I'm coming to you this weekend, we have the big triple header on Showtime. Lubin versus Charlo. Laura versus Gashad. And I forgot the other guy's name. The IBF champion. So, versus Austin Trout. It's going to be a nice triple header. Very nice triple header. And I'm hoping that it will lead down the road to a unification tournament between those 3, because the princess known as Miguel Cotto, is not going to put his WBO title or go anywhere near any of those other guys. Now, another thing is, late this week, a lot of stories are breaking, but one of the stories I was told about and I've been following was Oscar De La Hoya and Golden Boy are so desperate. They have nobody other than Canelo, and they know this. The hottest fighter that doesn't have a promoter right now is Earl Spence Jr. He's the truth. Everybody wants Spence. And so to try to entice Spence, Oscar De La Hoya served up Miguel Cotto to both Mikey Garcia and to Earl Spence Jr., but there's a catch. He wanted a 3-fight option. And neither one of those guys were willing to do that. They were like, we'll come in, we'll fight Cotto, but we're not sticking around with you. We're not doing that. And the few fighters Oscar has no stars. So the few fighters he does have, he's trying to bring some of those PBC guys who used to fight with his promotion, who we used to promote, but he was not their assigned promoter because Al Heyman advised fighters do not have a assigned promoter. Most Al Heyman advised fighters are promotional free agents, and Al likes it that way because, you know, these promoters getting a little bicker and they get a little BS, and, you know, that way you can't make certain fights with certain, you know, whatever. Except for Danny Jacobs, who's still Al Heyman advised, but now he's going to be working with Matchroom, and that's going to pretty much help him out because it'll help him maybe get a fight with Billy Joe Sanders. Should Billy Joe Sanders get past David Lemieux, who is now his mandatory. So that should be a fight I'm looking forward to seeing. But for the most part, Oscar De La Hoya and Golden Boy and HBO are desperate. What happened with HBO, the new people in charge of HBO boxing started treating the boxing people like shit. And it started with the people that were there treating Al Heyman badly. And Al Heyman, you know, Al Heyman and Oscar De La Hoya took their ball and went to Showtime. But Oscar being the, you know, guy he is, you know, you can't trust Oscar. He will, you know, Oscar then turned around and went crying back to HBO with Canelo. That's all he had was Canelo and Lucas Matisse and I think Linares, Jorge Linares, his biggest fighters that he has. No Spence, no Thurman, none of those guys that Al Heyman advised went with him. They're gone, and they weren't signed to Golden Boy. They were just like they were free agents. That Golden Boy was the promoter they used for their fights. Is Oscar? I wonder if Oscar thinks about these things when he goes through a lot of the crap he does. You know, Oscar seems to be, Golden Boy seems to be a promotional company that seems like they mostly want they want to promote mostly Latinos, and and that's great. That's great. But at the same token, there aren't a whole lot of big Latino stars outside of Canelo that are crossover stars that you're going to be able to make that with. I'm sorry, you can't do that. You can't just say, hey, I'm just going to promote Latino fighters. You have to be able to promote all fighters, the best fighters in the world. Golden Boy has a bad reputation with African-American fighters and other fighters that are non-Latino, and that's Golden Boy's fault. Golden Boy also has issues with a lot of the black boxing community because of the racist emails that came out of Golden Boy while they were during the defamation suit against Al Heyman, that Oscar De La Hoya and his little house nigger Bernard Hopkins have yet to come out and publicly, say anything about it. And Bernard, being the good little house nigger he is, just tries to avoid the subject altogether when it comes up. Way to go, Bernard. So this weekend, like I said, we're going to some big fights this weekend. Charlo, I love the Charlo bro. I love both the Charlo brothers. I believe that his brother Jamel is going to get shut the fuck out of the. This is what's funny to me. This is what's frustrating to me. Canelo Alvarez has already told the WBC, kiss my ass, I want nothing to do with you. Okay. Yet the WBC is the one that's mandating a rematch between Canelo Alvarez and Gennady Golovkin. The WBC, who Canelo Alvarez said, I want nothing to do with you. I don't want you. I don't want your belt. I mean, during the first fight, had Canelo won, the WBC title would have been vacant because he wasn't fighting for that title. WBC title would have been vacant, and Canelo would have won the WBA and the IBF titles. But neither the IBF or WBA are the ones screaming to give a rematch. No, it's the WBC. The WBC is like that thirsty-ass nigga at the club. Just sitting there, just so damn thirsty. Trying to get a girl. You're not going to get it that way, man. Come on, WBC. Have some respect. Now there's also talk by this idiot Mauricio Suleiman about we're going to split the heavyweight division and create a super heavyweight division. Dude, there are too many fucking divisions in boxing. That's why boxing's in the shape it's in. You see what UFC's done? UFC's done what boxing should be. UFC has 8 divisions. From flyweight to heavyweight, that's it. That's the list. And that's what boxing needs. If you look at one of my earlier videos, I put on there by real boxing, how I would expand the weight class, how I fixed the sport of boxing, and I go back to 8 weight classes, and I would juggle the weight classes to fit today's fighters. And it will be 8 weight classes. It will be 1 champion, maybe 2 at the most. The problem with boxing is these governing bodies. Boxing needs a better. Every sport has people at the top of it that legislate the sport itself. The problem with boxing is there's so many crooks in boxing, so many idiots in there that everybody's in there trying to get their piece of pie. Now Mauricio Suleiman is saying, hey, we're going to create a super heavyweight division. This isn't the amateur, son. This is professional boxing. We don't need a super heavyweight division. You're going to dilute and take away from the heavyweight division. The heavyweight division has been what it is. It is what it is. Leave it alone. You don't need to create another division because it's a fucking joke. Now, will you get some sanction fees? Oh, yeah, you get some thirsty-ass bastards that want to say, hey, I'll go fight for the superweight division. You'll get that. Because when the cruiserweight division first started, everybody thought that was a flipping joke. Just raise the light heavyweight limit. Everybody thought it was a freaking joke. But no, these guys and these damn promoters that have influence, they sit there and they slot these little things there because their piss-ass fighters aren't good enough to beat the best guys. So they try to get a bunch of the worst guys and put them in a little division of their own where their guys may be the best of the worst. That's how you get all. That's how you got super middleweight, because there was a bunch of guys that weren't good enough to beat Marvin Hagler at middleweight, but yet weren't good enough to beat Michael Spinks at light heavyweight. So, we'll create a super middleweight division right between the two, above middleweight but below light heavyweight, for a bunch of guys who couldn't compete in the middleweight or light heavyweight division. That's how you got super middleweight. That's how you got junior middleweight. You weren't good enough to compete at welterweight. You weren't good enough to compete at middleweight. Right there, junior middleweight. That's all these damn junior divisions are. They were a bunch of divisions slotted because fighters didn't have the dedication to make the original weight class, or they knew they couldn't compete at one weight, and they couldn't compete the weight above. So these idiots created their own little division for these pathetic bastards who had managers and whatever, made some money off them. That's how you got these pathetic junior divisions, and it looks like Mauricio Suleiman is going to do it again. He's going to do what his daddy did. He's going to do what every other person did. They're going to push this bullshit through, so we're going to wind up with a super heavyweight division. Thank you. Way to kill our sport. Just saying. It's stupid. We don't need it. In all the years of boxing, we've had the heavyweight division. The only places the super heavyweight division was in the amateurs. Amateurs. So what are we going to do? Mauricio Suleiman, you're going to say, well, since they have it in the amateurs, we're going to have it in the pros. We don't need it in the damn pros. You going to give us headgear and fucking shirts too? Shut the fuck up. Cut that shit out. This is what kills off boxing and kills. This is why boxing can't grow to beyond a niche sport, because the people that run it chase away any potential people that might be interested in becoming. I've been a lifelong boxing fan. This is all I know. This is what I've done. This has been my passion. And sometimes even I think about walking away because of all the bullshit that goes on. But I love the sport itself. I love boxing. I can't walk away. Even though I want to, I can't. Because this is what I know. This is what I do. I love this. I don't do this shit. I don't have a Patreon page, and I'm not flying all over the place. I'm not trying to get money for this. I do this. I do these things because I love this sport. All my life, I've loved this sport. This has been my passion. Whether competing, following, watching, this has been my passion, and this is why I do this. To put out my views on what's going on in boxing. I'm disappointed that the Deontay Wilder Luis Ortiz fight didn't come off, but yet here's another caveat. Now, since the WBC and VADA, which if you want to follow something, why don't you have all the IBF, WBC, WBO, why don't you all get involved with VADA? Why don't you all have VADA testing? That would be something if you want to put something together. But no, you idiots will crew up with the super heavyweight division, and it'll be monkey see, monkey do. But why don't you get that to with VADA? Because a lot of these guys, they don't want to put the money out for the testing. That shows you how much the WBA, the IBF, the WBO care about the testing. They don't give a fuck about it. Unless you get popped for it, then after they get popped for it, but they don't give a fuck. They really don't. The WBC is just pretending, because just like the UFC, Guys got popped for it, so now we got to pretend to give a fuck. Otherwise than that, they won't care. The problem with PEDs and boxing is it's a combat sport, and you can go in there and you're using your hands on a man, and if you got an unfair advantage, you kill a man. You know, and that's not. You know, you don't come in. No, that's not right. In any combat sport, whether it be boxing, MMA, kickboxing, whatever, if it's a combat sport, you don't need PEDs in there, because you know that advantage. No, if you want an advantage, work your ass off. You know, you want an advantage. Hey, if you're a bigger guy, sweat your ass down and fight in a smaller weight class. And once you make that weight, you bloom back up, and you got a weight advantage there. But you know, there are advantages you can have legal, you know, within the rules, and there are advantages that are just going to be too much, and that could lead to somebody getting killed. And PEDs are it. And unfortunately, all of these things in boxing are about lip service, because there's so much heat on all sports with PEDs that boxing gives it boxing, UFC, they give it lip service. Do they really care about it? No, not really. Now Luis Ortiz is still going to get he's now still ranked the mandatory for Anthony Joshua and the WBA. So let's see what happens with that. Honestly, if it was up to me, I would have Luis Ortiz fight Alexander Povechkin, and whoever the winner of that fight would probably be the guy that came in clean. You know, see which one of those bastards, or see which one of them didn't die from, you know, with whatever they're using. You know, which one was stuffed the most crap in there. I don't know. I want to see I have problems with a lot of things in boxing. I like the premise of what Al Heyman did, but I'm upset because Earl Spence Jr. fought early this year and he has not been back on TV since. Now there's talk about possible fight in December against Lamont Peterson. That's cool, but Earl Spence Jr. should have been in the ring at least one more time. Spence Jr. needs to be in the ring at least 3 times a year. He's a special fighter. He needs to be in the ring, and that's the problem with a lot of the Heyman guys. They're not in the ring enough. They're not. These guys are fighting 1-2 times a year, man. These guys should be 3 times a year. These guys should be fighting 3 times a year at the least. Just 1-2 times a year, man. I mean, look at Sean Porter had a fight early. Okay, it took some time because the cuts, whatever. But he's just getting back in there. Danny Garcia, he may fight again this year. He's had one fight. He lost to Keith Thurman. He hasn't, you know, sniffed fire ring. You know, the fighters need to fight, man. You got to fight. And it doesn't matter, you know, doesn't matter what shows you get them on. Just get them out there, get them fighting, man. Put them on somebody's undercard. I mean, hell, here we are. Crawford has fought 3 times this year, if I'm not mistaken. His final fight was for the unification. So Crawford's fought 3 times. Bob Arum's deal with Bob Arum's deal there with ESPN allowed Crawford to get that 3rd fight, to make the Crawford and Dongo fight. So that's good, but what I'm saying is we've seen Terrence Crawford fought 3 times this year. Fighters need to fight, man. I want to see how many times Shakur Stevenson fights. He says Top Rank promotes him. Will Shakur Stevenson be back? He should be back. That's the problem. Today's fighters, they don't fight enough. You know, these guys, I mean, are we going to get guys to fight like they did in the 40s, 50s? No, we're not. But I mean, these guys today need to fight more than they're fighting. You know, you got to fight more than 2 times a year. Especially a guy like Earl Spence Jr., who's considered the future of the welterweight division. He needs to be on eyes. Earl Spence, you have a deal with Showtime, you have Fox, and you have CBS. Earl Spence Jr. needs to fight at least once a year on all 3 of those platforms. All 3 of them. And if Earl Spence is your workhorse, guess what? When the NFL, when CBS gets the NFL, or Fox gets the NFL, you got working briefs, you need to put Earl Spence on the day before the Super Bowl. You have to get Earl Spence out there. You got to get him out there in the eyes of the people. You got to let the people see how special this kid is and build his audience. Help him build his brand, and do it in Dallas. Bring him home. Let him go home to Dallas and fight. He needs to fight at home in Dallas. Now, he's going to fight Peterson, which is a good fight. Peterson, for this fight, vacated his WBA regular title. Whatever. I guess that's to help out. That'll help out. So now the WBA and their stupid ass will put some other little bastard in there, a couple other idiots in there to fight for their regular title. Hell, maybe Danny Garcia fight for, since he don't want to fight anybody safe, to give Danny Garcia some layup. and he'll win that WBA regular title. And of course, the WBA regular champion because the #1 contender for Keith Thurman's WBA super champion. But the point is, honestly, I think that was done to keep the heat off of forcing a Thurman Spence fight, because honestly, if Lamont Peterson had kept that regular title and he puts it on the line, with Earl Spence put his IBF title on the line, now Earl Spence has now 2 titles, so to speak. But he's also, what that does, and I would have liked that, is it also means put Spence in line for a shot at Thurman, which is the fight we want anyways. We want, Spence versus Thurman eventually. But what better way to do that than to have that thing done and then not have a bunch of other regulatory BS? Because here's the thing. If you'd have kept that the way it was and let Peterson fight Spence for the IBF and the WBA regular title, Spence wins. Spence is now the mandatory for Thurman, but here's what it also does. It helps you get Spence back on the air quicker, because they're going to have some mandatory Spence is going to have to knock off, which means that Keith Thurman can take care of business with the WBC side, and eventually you merge up to that big fight between Thurman and Spence, which is what we want. Now, is there a chance that down the line, maybe in 2020, we get Spence versus Crawford? Absolutely. I believe that'll happen, because Crawford, by some wrangling of Bob Arams, has, without ever having to fight at welterweight, is now the mandatory contender, the mandatory #1 contender for the WBO welterweight title, which is held by Jeff Horn. And okay, now so this is why fighters didn't want to do the deal. This is why Jeff Horn, he has this deal with Bob Arum to get the Pacquiao fight and give some options, whatever. This is why that option thing is a bad idea, because now Jeff Horn has to fight who Bob Arum wants to fight. He has to fight who Bob Arum wants to fight, and Bob Arum has those options on him. And so Bob Arum Manny Pacquiao said, I wasn't going back to Australia. I want the rematch, but it's got to be in the Philippines. So Manny Pacquiao kind of passed for the moment. So what does Bob Arum do? Because he wants to keep control of that WBO welterweight title. Has somehow finagles a deal to make Thurman a mandatory contender. How you pull that off is beyond me, but he did it. He pulled it off. So Bob Arum's big look. Here's the thing. Bob Arum wants to break into the Australian market, so Jeff Horn is good for that. What's going to happen is pretty much Bob Arum's going to have Jeff Horn let him make a defense that WBO title against somebody that he can beat in Australia. Keep Jeff Horn popular over there. Make sure that boosts him up there. Then he's going to bring Keith. Then he's going to bring Sean. He's going to bring Crawford over to Australia. Crawford's going to take Horn apart. And maybe they'll go back there for the rematch because there's big money to be made in Australia. Maybe they won't. But the whole plan is to keep that WBO title in the top-ranked camp. And that's the problem. A lot of these governing bodies are in certain promoters' pockets. The WBC, they say, is in Heyman's pocket. It could be. We know the WBO is clearly in Bob Arum and Top Rank's pocket. So now Oscar De La Hoya and Golden Boy have lost a lot of their credibility, a lot of their stroke, because they like to have the WBC in their pocket, but they don't. So now they got to make a deal with the WBA, the IBF, to try to get one of those in their pocket. And I'm sure that one of them will regress and want to be Canelo's promoter of Canelo's sanctioning body of choice. So that's the crooked politics of boxing. But I just enjoy the stuff in the ring. When you get these guys in the ring and you get the best fighting the best, and it's just pure magic. Like we're going to get them in December. December, we're going to have Vasily Lomachenko versus Guillermo Rigondeaux. The two guys that won 2-time gold medalists in the Olympics, and they're going to fight in December at the Garden, and it's going to be a hell of a fight. I believe it's going to be one of the better fights of this year. Do I expect a dragon? Actually, it's going to be a tactical masterpiece, but I think right now, oddly enough, I'm leaning toward Rigo. I'm oddly leaning. I've seen a lot of what Lomachenko does. A lot of people say, well, Lomachenko's bigger, younger, whatever. But I like Rigondeaux, because I think there's something about Rigondeaux that he fights up to the level of his opposition, like he did against Donier. I think Rigondeaux's a guy that needs that challenge. I'm not saying Lomachenko doesn't either, but I just somewhere on the lines, I like Rigondeaux. The only way I see Rigondeaux losing is maybe if they'll rob him, because they're so hyped on, they're so hyped on Lomachenko being pound for pound #1 in the world, and he's a guy you didn't avenge your only loss. You got 10 fights, you lost one of them. You're 9-1. How the hell are you going to tell me you're better than Golovkin? You're better than, Spence. You're better than Thurman. After 10 fights, you're going to tell me you're the best fighter in the world pound for pound? You're full of it. If you couldn't beat goddamn Orlando Salido, man, at 13 losses, what the hell makes you think you're going to beat Keith Thurman at 147? You already said you can't go to 140 to fight Crawford. So like I said, for some odd reason, there's just, I don't know, the boxing media is so enamored with having I'm gonna say they're so enamored of having a white guy at the top of the rankings. They haven't had that since the 40s. That they're so enamored they have to have this. That being that there's no good white American fighters, they're now bringing in, saying, hey, we're going to get the Eastern Europeans, and we're going to push them. And then when they get the hell destroyed, they say, well, they was overrated. Come on, guys. The best fighters, this is what I hate. Boxers are warriors. I don't care. Warriors are warriors. We don't go by the color of your skin. We go by your skill level, man. And I get tired of these people in the boxing media and these casuals and all these other idiots just saying, doesn't breaking the sport down by race, man. The best fighters in the world are the best fighters in the world. And I root for a fighter regardless of what color you are. I don't give a damn. I like Lomachenko. I think he's a very good fighter. Do I think he's pound for pound #1 in the world? No. Do I think he's in the top 10? Yeah, I put him in the top 10, maybe 8, 9, or 10. But I'm not going to put him in the top 5. Because he hasn't given me enough. He hasn't shown me enough. He showed me enough to let me know that he's better than a lot of guys out there. But is he good enough to be in the top 5? No. No. Maybe he's in the top 10. I'll give him maybe 8, 9, or 10. He's not in the, 8, 9, or 10. And that's as high as I'm willing to give him. 8 is as high as I'm willing to go with Lomachenko at this particular moment in time. Until I see more. Let Lomachenko go out there and, if Lomachenko avenges the loss to Salido, that's a good step. Then let him go fight a Mikey Garcia. Go to 135. Or, matter of fact, unify your own damn division. How about that? You've never been undisputed in any weight class. Unify 130 pounds. Unify 130. Clean out. There's a couple good champions at 130. Clean that out. Then I'll maybe move you up to number. Then we can start talking about it. You want to crack the top 5 with me? This is what you need to do to crack the top 5 for me. In my opinion, for Lomachenko to do for me, to crack the top 5 is unify 130. Clean up the Lomachenko, clean up the Salido, clean up the Salido mess. Clean that up. And I'm not just saying you go back, you beat Salido. No. You go, okay. Trilogies, people, trilogies. Remember, Riddick Bowe, Evander Holyfield, 3 times. Clean it up. Riddick Bowe's a better man in that trilogy. They cleaned it up. That's what I'm asking. Clean it up. Lomachenko, clean up the, when I'm saying Lomachenko, clean up the Salido mess. Unify 130, clean up the Salido mess. Then move up to 135 and win a belt there. And, win a belt there. That will get you into my top 5. If you accomplish those 4 things there, that gets you into my top 5. Plus some other people at the jostle. Now, pound for pound right now, as far as I'm concerned, if I have to, which I don't do pound for pound list, but if I do one right now, pound for pound, in my opinion, is Terrence Crawford. Terrence Bud Crawford is a pound for pound #1 fighter in the world. In my opinion. Now, like I said, I don't do pound for pound, so that's as far as I'm going to go with it. I don't, because I'm not going to say who's the 1 through 10. I don't do that shit. But I'm saying, if you ask me right now, who's my #1 pound for pound, I'm going to go Crawford because Andre Ward retired. So that's going to be it for this edition. I'll be back to you hopefully Monday night with a recap of the triple header on Showtime. And till we see each other again, it's Doe Wilson signing out.